We're going to be talking about, so I think probably the biggest story of the week, and that is an incident between the Arizona Coyotes and the Anaheim Ducks. I think the game itself was on April Fool's Day, if I'm remembering correctly. With just over 5 minutes to go in the game between Anaheim and Arizona, Anaheim are up 5-0. Earlier in the game, Zegras had pulled off another Michigan, which is just beautiful to see. He takes a poke at Josef Coroner, who was in relief, trying to see if he could maybe try and get a loose puck, right? It wasn't malicious, and it was one poke. Whistle goes, and Jay Beagle takes exception to this. Cross-checks Zegras from behind, knocking him down, and Troy Terry comes in to stand up for his teammate. Doesn't drop his gloves or anything. And Beagle just goes on him, unloads on him. There's pictures out there about some of the damage that was done to Troy Terry. He leaves the ice afterwards. He's got a towel over his eye. Actually, if you look at his face, it's swollen, it's bloodied, it's bruised all over that same eye. And I believe there is an injury on it. It was bloodshot after. Completely defenseless was Troy Terry. And he was not a willing combatant. He never even dropped his gloves. Daniel, there's a few different quotes and some sort of stuff that we can get to a little later. I just want to do two little quick things that came from Elliot Friedman last night to give a bit more context to the situation. First off, apparently the Ducks are upset about a few things here. But first off, apparently Arizona are saying that the incident was not about the Michigan goal that Zegras had pulled off earlier in the game. It was about the poke check. The Ducks thought that basically what should have happened is the fight should have been ended earlier, because apparently earlier in the game, a linesman broke up a fight that had happened, but they weren't nearly as quick in the Terry situation. You are a Ducks fan. Mm-hmm. You are a big Troy Terry fan, even before he was on the main roster back in this time in the World Juniors and that. And we all love Trevor Zegras. Before we get to the quotes, especially from the Arizona commentators, because those were bad, what did you make of the situation?
I was annoyed. I didn't like it at all. I think that if these type of things break out, it shouldn't be because of what happened there. We saw it was a slight poke check. It wasn't like he was Trevor Zegras wasn't he wasn't crowding the crease. He wasn't doing anything. It was just a simple play that I think kind of just boiled over on what happened throughout the game. So we first had the first fight. It was 5-0, and everything everyone was talking about was another Michigan goal, which was basically, I think this one was a lot more impressive. It went around Sonny Milano.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that was great. And I just didn't like it. I think that, Jay Beagle, he has been a fighter in the past. He has had a streak like this before, but it just felt so unnecessary for me for when it happened in the game, for why it happened in the game, and who he I don't know. It's just the way I see this is do you feel like a big man now, Jay Beagle? You punched a skilled winger who is clearly smaller than you, who is not a fighter. What is that what is that supposed to prove to me in that sense?
That's a very good question. For some context for anyone who doesn't know, Jay Beagle has had a pretty long career and a very successful one. I want to say he was the first player to ever win a Kelly Cup, a Calder Cup, and the Stanley Cup. Anyone who doesn't know, the Kelly Cup is the ECHL's championship. The Calder Cup is the AHL, and we all know the Stanley Cup, right? So he's clearly a guy that has. I'm not giving him benefit of the doubt, but I'm trying to get inside Jay Beagle's mind, and we all know that the saying of the ECHL is a jungle. Same in the AHL. That guy, he would have gone through the system when it was just a goon sort of way. And Jay Beagle was without him, the Caps probably don't win the cup back in 2018. But it was just a sort of I'm not excusing him. I hated it. Just to read a few quotes here. First off, this is what the Arizona commentators had to say. I don't know their names. I don't really care.
Tyson Nash is one of them.
Tyson Nash. I've never heard of him. Really?
Yeah, we're I don't think. Okay, he got traded to the Leafs, but I don't think he only played for the Marlies, I believe, or the St. John's Maple Leafs at the time.
Do we know his penalty minutes?
I'm not sure. I think he was. I could look over, but I remember he was a kind of a two-way winger. He was kind of before my time with things, but I just remember he was long time Coyotes guy, and then he was on the Leafs slightly.
So that first off, former Coyote, that explained it. First off, what he has to say here, quote, that's the problem with these young players. You want to embarrass guys. You want to skill it up. You better be prepared to get punched in the mouth. Now, this got lamb, and the audio of it is out there. It's very easy to find. I think if you look up just Jay Beagle and Troy Terry online, like the first clip will normally have the commentary. It's on Twitter and that. It's getting lambasted as it should be. Because first off, if it's true what the Coyotes were saying, and this was about the poke check, which is still an overreaction. First off, the commentator got it wrong. And second, what a stupid and I hate using this term, but what a dinosaur take. Because I'm better than you, you're going to punch me in the face because don't get embarrassed by the Ducks, who are not a good team this year. And you're the Coyotes. Suck it. You're bad too. You're two bad teams.
I just checked Tyson Nash's stats. So he was a bit of a goon. Like for I think a stretch of 6 seasons, he averaged more than 100 penalty minutes.
And there we go.
Yeah, bit of goon type of guy. He only played 54 games for the Marlies in 2006, 2007. That was actually his last year in North America before he went to Japan.
I didn't know there was a Japanese league. That's cool.
Yeah, I was surprised too. And I didn't like the take at all. A lot of the things that people were saying to it were, and it's just like, oh, that's what happens when you trade Nick Delorier. Like that's what happens when you want a pure skill team. And I don't think that's the case there with the way the Ducks are built. I think he went you know what I mean? I know he's injured and everything, but you didn't go for one of the bigger guys playing on the team because the Ducks still play a bit heavy here and there, right? Like you went for Troy Terry. You went for a guy that's just trying to break things apart, just break things up, and he didn't instigate the fight.
With respect, and two, it all started with the cross-check on Zegras, right? Even Zegras is just it's in the nicest way. Trevor Zegras is a stick. He's probably 200 pounds wet. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just going after. It's just gutless, man. It's just I saw that Kevin BX was was trending on Twitter. I didn't hear what he had to say, but I saw people comparing him to Don Cherry, and I was like, oh goodness gracious. But here's the exact quote. Well, first off, actually, so head coach Dallas Eakins for the Ducks said, quote, "It was cowardly. Terry was cut wide open and basically defenseless. Not a good sight." Then Trevor Zegras was very candid in what he had to say about the whole situation. Quote, "Minutes left in the game, we're up 5-0. Our best player, our leading goal scorer," that's 31 goals, by the way, "one of our best players, in my opinion, in the whole league. I take a shot and Terry comes in to help me," Zegras said. I'm not going to name the player. I get that he's going to maybe punch him once, but the fact he's down and not engaged in the fight, you're going to hit him 3 more times. I think it's embarrassing. He should be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed he got that far. I appreciate Troy sticking up for me because that's a I'm reading it properly. I appreciate Troy sticking up for me because that's a nonsense cross-check in a 5-0 game. I think the league should step in here and do something about it. You don't punch a guy when he's down, especially a 31 goal scorer in the NHL who is a superstar. I think it's embarrassing. I think it's a bad look for the league. And for the player that did it, it's humiliating, and I think he should be bleeping punished. I'm surprised he hasn't been fined yet, Trevor, for saying that, by the way, because we know how this league is. But I don't think I could have said it myself.
I loved it, by the way.
What?
I love
Oh, it's a great quote.
We always talk about it, where it's just all the guys coming up now, all the younger guys.
Those young Americans, man, I'm telling you.
They're willing to speak up, and we see it in other leagues. We always talk about that. And it's the personality that's coming out. It's the frustration that's coming out. It's perfect for us journalists. But at the same time, it just kind of shows where, this is one thing I always think about. It kind of shows that what we see in terms of hockey media sometimes with the players is not the same as that you're going to get in an NHL video game. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. You know what a big problem I saw this. First off, that Trevor Zegras quote reminded me of when he called out Team Canada before the gold medal game in the World Juniors. And it was like, what's this kid talking about? And then they beat Canada. Yeah. Trevor Zegras is so good for this game. I love the kid. I think he might be my age. I think about it. Now, Daniel, here's a sort of thing I want to talk about here. I think they hinted last night that there was going to be, this wasn't done and over with, but player safety, and sorry, I mean that on the broadcast. I was Freeman and Merrick talking, that maybe this isn't done, but there hasn't been any other word from player safety yet. And it's kind of weird that I don't think there's going to be anything else publicly, at least. Because if you remember when Tom Wilson terrorized the Rangers a couple of years ago, remember? And he ragdolled Panarin. If you remember, he wasn't disciplined for that. He was fined for the punch on Pavel Buchnevich on the play, but Pavel Buchnevich, who was a Ranger at the time, by the way, Mike, how do you feel? But he technically got nothing for just like throwing Panarin around, another star player. So if you really think about it, the precedent here actually makes sense for the league, not for the good of the sport, but it makes sense that there might not be anything here. And I think this is another example, and you might see this on Twitter, is that I think the NHL sort of have a crisis of not knowing what demographic it's trying to target still. And I think the people I see complaining the most about the way that this whole thing has been handled so far, it's been a younger generation. Now, guys like Frank Saravilli and John Liu, who are, middle-aged dudes, have been, criticizing this whole situation as well. But I see a Dmitry Filipovich, like all like the younger people. And then you just have these former players like, what's his name? Tyler Nash?
Tyson Nash.
Tyson Nash. He's not even worth remembering his name. They're like, this is great. This is the young players. It's just, it's dangerous for the league. I still don't know, like, who are you trying to target? Who's your target fan base here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, it's weird to me where I kind of feel that in one sense, you still are going to have that rough and toughness in the game. And there's still that expectation where you're going to have a guy like a Wayne Simmons who, he could still play in the top 9, but he's still going to defend your skilled guys. So you're still always going to need those types of guys. But I don't believe that it's going to go back to that situation where you have a fourth line where just all three are enforcers. And it's just kind of confusing to me of what they want the league to be, because in terms of what they want to move past on things where they, we think about an era like Wayne Gretzky, where they always talk about where, he never had to kind of stick up for himself in these types of situations.
You couldn't touch him, no.
Yeah. And I know this is like a hindsight 2020 thing, but what Sidney Crosby had to kind of go through in that transition between that era and then what we have the era now, when all the rules kind of changed. And for me, it's just like, what does the NHL kind of want in terms of what kind of game they want to present to people? Because I think that it is moving in the right direction with things, with a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, Dmitry Filipovich speaking out about something like this. But at the same time, it's just, when we talk about like the growth of the game, I think that the NHL is kind of caught in that situation where, this was the base we had before, and this is what kind of maintained the sport. We can't alienate these people, but at the same time, we need the potential of the newer fans or the younger people to kind of keep things going. Because remember, I sent you and Alex that like the most profitable like Canadian athletes out there, like Crosby and McDavid are not even the top guys there. Like Lance Stroll in Formula One is one of the top guys there. Tristan Thompson, who was waived this year and went to the Bulls and got traded like twice, is the second most profitable Canadian athlete.
I think Lance was in the top 5, and he's only in the seat because his dad owns the team. And he drives with like the 4-time world champion and Seb Vettel, and it's just like, no, you know what? My dad owns the team. I'm here, and he's more. That's insane to think about. That's very good. I'm happy you brought that up because that was an insane graphic, and then that's not good.